Hey guys and girls of Junior Youth Sundays, happy Valentine's Day to you. I wanted to share a little funny story with you before I get into today's lesson, illustration and lesson. Um, so I went to a store and I wanted to buy my wife a bouquet of flowers and I wanted to buy her a card for Valentine's Day. So I bought her a bouquet of flowers and had that all picked out and looked through all the different cards that they had, and one really struck my eye, and it was just I loved the words of it, and I thought, man, that those words are like words that I would say to her, and so I picked the card up, found the envelope for it, put them together, and exited the store. And I came home and I went quickly to another room where I could sign the card, and I started writing the card, and I was reading the card at the same time, and I got down to the bottom of the card and it said happy anniversary. It's not my anniversary yet. It's not our anniversary for another month. That happens in March. So I'm really too early, or else I didn't read very well. And we'll go with that one. I didn't read very well. And so I made a note on the card, I mean Valentine's Day instead of anniversary. Anyway, we had a good laugh about it, but that's just an aside. I have a story for you today, a verse from the Bible, and also an application. And so I'll give you the verse first. And of course, for today, it's going to contain the word love in it. And our story is going to contain thoughts of love, and the illustration that we're all ultimately talking about Jesus' love for us. We're going to get there by way of an illustration. Okay, so here's our verse for today. Our verse is found in John chapter 15 and verse 13, and it says this: Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. These are the words of Jesus as he was talking to the people around him and telling them what kind of love he had for them. The love that was sacrificial, a love that would lead him ultimately to a place where he would give up his life for those people he called his friends, you and I. He would ultimately do that to bring us back into relationship with his Father through a sacrifice of himself. Pretty spectacular and sad to think about too. Spectacular in that he was the only one that could bring us back into relationship with his Father. And sad that that needed to happen in the first place, because we had fallen out of relationship as people, as humans. We had fallen out of relationship with God, and so Jesus' mission, his entire purpose, was to bring us back into that relationship. So that's a direct quote from him in John chapter 15 and 13. The story I want to tell you today happened in the United States, I believe, and I heard this story years ago, so I'm just going to relate the story to you. It was at a time where in a farming community, and it was really, really tough going. Money was scarce. Things were tough. Farm life was really tough at that point. And the story occurs in a one-room schoolhouse. So classes, if you can imagine, all the classes were in one schoolroom. You'll have seen this if you've been to Black Creek Pioneer Village, or if you've been to Fanshawe Pioneer Village in London. You'll have seen what a one-room schoolhouse, I think they call it, looked like. Anyway, at the back of the schoolhouse, when you entered, there was an area that you would hang up your coats and hang up your bag, and it was a place where you left your lunch as well. Lunchtime came around and everyone was excused. Class was over. All the grades were excused to go to their lunch bags. And one of the boys went to the teacher and said, "Someone stole my lunch. I came here with a full lunch and someone has stolen my lunch." So the teacher was distraught. She wanted to get to the bottom of it and find out who'd stolen the lunch. So she lined the kids up and asked them who stole the lunch. And as she went down the lines, people were saying, "I didn't take the lunch. I didn't steal the lunch." So she came to the last boy in line, and he wasn't a healthy kid at all. He was very thin and very frail. His family wasn't doing all that great, and he had lacked a number of meals, and as a result was fairly skinny and weak looking. He admitted that he had stolen the lunch. The teacher knew that she had to do something. There needed to be a consequence for stealing. But she was also quite distraught, quite upset in her soul, because the consequence back then for stealing was a spanking. She had the right to administer a spanking, and the way it was done back then was that the child, the perpetrator of the crime, in this case stealing a lunch, was sent outside to find what was known as a switch, and this switch was going to be a piece, not a branch, but a twig from a tree, and that was going to be used to administer a spanking on the child. So the teacher really did not want to do this. It did not feel good. It did not feel right. That was the consequence. So she sent him outside, and he came back with a switch and gave it to the teacher, and she said, "Okay, the way we're going to do this is we're going to do this without your shirt on." This story at this point might make some of you go, say, "What now? What did they do?" This would never happen in 2021, would it? But that's the way it was back then, in those days. So he took his shirt off, and when he took his shirt off, the teacher stood there and went, "Oh, wow, this is not gonna be a normal spanking at all." He was frail, and once he took his shirt off, she could see that she could almost see his rib line. She stood there for a minute with the switch in her hand, and he was leaned over the desk appropriately in the position to receive his lashes, and not wanting to do it, she lifted that switch above her head, and as she was bringing it down towards his back, a hand stopped her, and she was annoyed at first, and then turned around, and it was the boy who had his lunch stolen. This boy was in a higher grade. He was a big, strapping boy from a farm that was doing well, and he said to the teacher, "Don't punish him, punish me." So he took his shirt off, and he picked up the little boy and put him to the side, and took his shirt off and leaned over, and he waited for the teacher, and the teacher brought down the lash a couple of times on his back. That was the punishment. And that little boy walked away free, walked away forgiven by someone who showed him grace, someone who didn't need to show him grace. He had been wronged. His lunch had been stolen from him, it was right for the little boy to have consequence, but he chose, seeing the state that the little boy was in, to take the punishment on himself. That's love. There's no other way to see it. It's unexplainable love, and really unmerited. And by that I mean there's nothing the little boy did to deserve it at all. But the bigger boy took the lashes that day. You know, when I heard that story, you can probably see the illustration where we're going with this. The illustration was that Jesus loved us so much, as our verse says in John 15:13, greater love has no man. Jesus had that kind of love for you and I, though. You and I were that little boy. We had wronged God, and justly we deserved consequences for our sin. But bizarrely enough, God himself steps in the form of his son Jesus to take our punishment. That's a really cool Valentine's Day story, that the God of heaven loved you and I so much that he did that for us. Incredible. Fantastic news on this Valentine's Day. So guys, girls, as you go about your day today, I want you to remember this verse in John 15:13. Flip over to it. Keep your Bible open and look at it a couple of times today, and just remember what Jesus did because of his love, because of his unconditional love and the grace that he poured out onto you and I and the forgiveness of sin. It's absolutely amazing. Thanks for joining us today. Just wanted to remind you, tomorrow's Family Day. We won't be getting together online Family Day, but we'll be doing it the next Monday after that, and we'll keep you up to date on when we're able to see each other again in person. Until then, guys, God bless you. We love you immensely. Have a great Valentine's Day. Bye.